I'm going to show you how to stretch watercolour paper. We stretch the paper because when you apply water to paper, it causes the filaments in the paper to expand, and when it dries, these dry at different rates, and it causes tension within the paper, which causes the sort of ruckling that you get if you don't stretch your paper first. It's a good idea to get watercolour paper as good quality as you can get, because the end results are so much better. The colours are stronger, and the better quality watercolour you get, generally it's heavier and probably requires a bit more soaking. And when we talk about soaking, it's not really soaking, you're dampening the paper so that it's consistently wet throughout the paper, so that the fibres within the paper dry consistently. You'll need a good board, slightly larger than the watercolour paper you're using, so that there's space for the gum strip to stick down 1 centimetre over the edge of the paper or a bit more, and the rest on the board. The board has to be thick enough so that when the paper dries, it doesn't bend the board with the tension that it creates as it dries. You need a good clean environment, clean water and a nice clean sponge. Your paper, your board and your gum strip. I look pretty mucky, but it's all clean. It's all been through the wash, it's just old paint. Before you get anything wet, it's a good idea to pre-prepare your gum strip lengths. So you need the 4 edges of the paper. You just get your gum strip, get it the length required, which is slightly longer than the edge of your paper, and rip it and get your 4 pieces together. If you start trying to use the gum strip when your hands are wet, it gets damp right into the tape and it messes up your gum strip. To dampen the paper, you need to dampen it consistently, or soak it, wet it consistently. If it were a bigger piece of paper, you can do it in the bath, a shallow clean bath of cold water, and in this case I've just got this tray of cold water. Right, you just run the paper through the water, making sure that it's definitely consistently wet. It isn't really a question of soaking. I then sort of give it a wiggle and let the excess water run off a bit, and then you just lay it down onto your board and you're ready to put the gum strip on. Try not to touch the surfaces. It's tempting to wipe off the excess water with a tissue, but you will damage the surface of the paper. To prepare the gum strip, you get your sponge thoroughly wet, soaking wet, hold it onto the gum side of the strip and drag the sponge through it, so you really wet the strip and activate the glue. Making sure that the paper is nice and flat. You get your dampened piece of gum strip and stick it about 1 centimetre over the edge of the paper and onto the board and press it down firmly. You then continue to do the 4 edges. Press it down firmly again. Don't touch the surface of the paper too much. I just want to just make sure it's straight edges. Do all 4 edges and press it down flat. You'll see that there is some wrinkling in the paper, there's some bending and twisting of the paper already, but just be patient, let it dry flat somewhere, and once it's dry, it's ready to use. there's a tendency to use tissue paper or something like that to lift the excess water, and you can do that, but it's probably better not to touch the surface if you can help it. Make sure it dries flat somewhere and also out of direct heat so that it dries consistently. You'll end up with a nice stretched piece of paper like this on which to work. Okay, thank you very much.